Yo guys, today we are gonna react to cut content of episode 8 solo leveling about the Baran fight. So yeah, let's watch it and see what did it change from the web novel. I want to know.
We are on a
I
one-stop
read the
train to
manhwa.
Jeju Island, and there is absolutely nothing stopping it. Along with it comes the biggest change solo leveling will make, since the plan Japan has with South Korea differs massively depending on whether you're reading the novel, manhwa, or anime.
Oh
I'm
really?
talking about an insane shift in narrative that borders on geopolitical warfare. That,
Oh,
however, is only half of the episode, since the other half covers Sung's tower climb to the Demon King.
I feel like they will follow the manhwa more than the web novel. Like I feel like that they will, yeah, because the anime is very similar to the manhwa more than the web novel because the web novel is so different than the manhwa.
It's a more extensive challenge that focuses on Sung's shadows, his ever-increasing power, and the system. Both are equally important, so I'm actually going to split them up into two videos.
Two videos,
This
yeah.
will focus only on the tower dungeon, while the next will cover all the Jeju stuff. It's a video I promise you don't want to miss out on. Before we get started though, a lot of people have been asking when the new solo leveling drops were coming out, so I'm happy to announce right now.
Oh, it's a sponsor. Sorry, any news? I don't want
Will
to watch
cost a bit
this.
extra. I just wanted to make that clear so none of you were caught off guard by it. But anyway, episode 20, Looking Up Was Tiring Me Out, covering chapters 82 to 87 from the manhwa and chapters 101 to 107 from the web novel. To start from Sung's encounter with Essel, her initial squad was 3 demon knights and her a demon noble.
Ooh,
Based on
yeah.
Sung's own assumption of how demon power scaling worked, the knights were about the same level of an A rank, while Essel and the other demon nobles were easily in the S ranks. He could tell
Oh,
by the way that
Estelle is S rank, so he is as strong as other S rank. That's kind of, but Sonju Woo just dominates between them. Sonju is that stronger than the S rank in this moment, huh?
she fought against him. Her technique of rapidly targeting all his vital points clearly indicated she was very well trained. In fact, if not for Sung being her opponent, Sung knew she could easily handle 3 to 4 A ranks at once. It was just
Ooh.
unlucky that she had to be facing him. It was
Yeah.
when she surrendered shortly after this that Sung would feel extremely put off by such absurd behavior. It's not like intelligent monsters were rare, but to see her prostrate herself was a level above rare. There was something about Essel that just seemed strange to him. Aside from the bears expressing their disdain towards her though, Sung figured this would be a good opportunity to initiate conversation. It was before those questions we saw in the anime though that Essel would first give her a reason for fighting against him. You see, as a guardian of this floor and all its inhabitants, she couldn't let some random person keep hunting her fellow demons indiscriminately. If you looked at it from the perspective of her, Sung was literally barging into her home and massacring all her people. He had essentially flipped roles with the monsters from his own world.
Oops.
So, since he was the equivalent of a magic beast to them, Sung bore no grudge against Essel for fighting against him. He fully understood where
Oh,
it was she was coming from. He
yeah.
just didn't care.
Oh, that's why Sanju didn't even care about killing because I feel like Sanju would be ruthless to her any opponent.
Even now, Essel was nothing more than a source of information, so as soon as her value dropped below what Sung was expecting, Sung fully planned on killing her.
Oh.
He was extremely curious to see how much XP he would get. This differs from how it was in the manhwa, since Essel's likeness to a human made him uncomfortable with killing her. In the novel, Sung was all business though, so Essel's survival depended solely on whether she could provide something more valuable than XP and whatever.
Damn, the novel Sanju is so, I don't know, so ruthless. It kind of reminds me of what you call solo max level newbie or something. The MC of that is so ruthless too, but at least, but he is not that ruthless because he did spare some enemies and but all the enemies become his slave in the end.
loot she would drop. It was value which Sung believed could only be provided via the entry permit. So, Sung would be the one to ask if she had it, leading to a blank stare that made it seem like she didn't. Sung would then waste no time summoning his dagger, since to him negotiations were now over. He would
Damn. The
briefly
word
ponder
novel
the
saja is
peculiarity of an
so...
intelligent monster using their intelligence to beg for their life, then immediately switch thoughts to the unknown amount of XP he was about to get. I mean, she was the first demon noble he'd come across after all. So, as far as Sung knew, killing Essel might even be what grants him the entry permit. It was right as he was about to attack, though, that's when Essel would say that she'd give it to him. Her explanation of where it was validated why he wasn't able to find it, so believing what she was saying was easy. Whether he could trust her was a different story, but so long as she followed her end of the deal, Sung would proceed to keep his. It was a belief stemming from a pledge he made back when he first received the power of the system. Give and take. Even if Essel was a monster, Sung would abide by that pledge regardless. He did still consider it a waste to give up the XP of her and her clan, but the trade-off was the massive amount of time he'd saved.
Bro, it's just business.
He knew he'd spent way too much time on the 80th floor already. Plus, even if Essel did try to betray him, it's not like Sung would be upset about it. If anything, he'd probably be happy since he'd get both the XP and the permit. Now, Sung's first question was to compare the current situation with the monsters of regular dungeons, revealing the different nature between them. With magic beasts aiming to kill humans and these monsters wanting to protect the dungeon, that further reinforced the idea that he was the magic beast to them. It was a momentary thought of role reversal that Sung didn't really dwell on. Sung's next question would trigger the system's intervention, but the way it happened in the novel wasn't quite the same as how it happened here. I could just be looking into it too much, but I feel this difference is at least worth mentioning. So, where in the anime and manhwa the system directly blocks Essel from speaking, in the novel it's actually the opposite. Essel continues speaking like nothing is wrong, while all Sung can hear is the monotone voice telling him his conversation was being blocked. It was a message that would last until Essel's explanation was over. So, while the outcome was the same with regards to Sung not getting the information he wanted, the system's way of deafening him implies a level of control over him we may not have expected. Now, the system blocking Essel was actually a mistake on its part because had it not interfered with Sung at all, then Sung felt he wouldn't have suspected anything. He would have assumed Essel's explanation to be nothing more than a system-made backstory, since with every aspect of these instance dungeons always being so game-like, it wasn't far-fetched to consider Essel's story another one of those elements. To him, it would have just been a simple bit of backstory for an NPC. It was the moment the system intervened, though, that's when Sung knew for certain she had answers. Whatever enemy she was referring to clearly held relation to whatever was going on with him. The system had acted way too sensitively for that not to be the case. Either way, with the system exhibiting influence over Earth, these monsters, and even him, it was clear it had some sort of transcendental powers. Something Sung knew he needed to be wary of. Essel passing out couldn't be fixed by any of Sung's potions, so the wait for her had actually led to numerous battles. As it turns out, demons without intelligence often considered demons with intelligence as enemies.
I feel like AniNews cut content is the same as all of his cut content. He watched the anime first and then read the manhwa or the novel to give his cut content, so that he doesn't have any context for future events.
With Essel out in the open as easy prey, many demons had tried to attack her. There was a whole pile of them right next to her when she woke up. Now, this next part is actually kind of a side thing, but it was common throughout all three mediums that Sung wouldn't know what personal space was. There would be times where he'd put his hands on her, and every time Sung would sense an increased heart rate. Because it was for nothing more than standing her up or guiding her forward, Sung would assume it was because she was scared. The manhwa and anime show it for what it really is. It's when we get to the Radaru Castle that Essel would have committed the equivalent of the Trojan horse for the demon realm. It was after her dad's justified reaction to it that—
Are you saying that the novel is very vague about what you call Essel blushing of that?
he would quickly piece together this was the person who killed Vulcan and Metis. As trusted allies he was rather fond of, he was reminded of how sad he was when the news of their defeat first got to him. It's from this that Essel's dad knew he shouldn't fight, since to do so would require being ready to sacrifice everyone. Keep in mind, that wasn't due to the fact these demon nobles were weak. I mean, each was the equivalent of an S rank. It's just that Sung was way stronger now.
All of them are S rank? That's kinda insane, there's so much S rank creatures here. What the hell? I didn't
Plus,
know
with
this.
the Radaru clan being the weakest out of all of them, it was much easier to just believe Sung's words and avoid a fight altogether. That's when the dad would ask what else Sung wanted, fully expecting to hear something unreasonable.
So Baran, of course, Baran said, of course, Baran is a national level threat. I guess Baran is as strong as a national level hunter, but yeah, I think so. But he is a monarch. But he is a nerf monarch. If I've heard so from some shots talking about it, since I don't want to spoil why Baran is nerfed here, but the but yeah, Baran is nerfed in the demon world in the battle against Sanjin Bu. If Baran was in his full power, he would have defeated Sanjin Bu, not diff.
Reason being that after years of dealing with the demands of those who were stronger, not once were they ever fair. They were always made to insult both him and his people. So, to know this situation was likely the same, Essel's dad could only wait in frustration. It was when Sung asked for Essel herself that all the knights would gasp in astonishment. To see such peculiar reactions from those he considered monsters, well, that served to validate Essel's story from before. He started to think perhaps there was some truth to what she said after all. It was once the whole guide thing was cleared up that's when Essel's dad would contemplate what all this really meant. Like, to him, Sung was essentially a calamity, and this calamity had just walked straight through their front door. He would think back to the day he first arrived here and remember how he knew the order they'd constantly been hearing was preparing them for something. They didn't know what it was, but just like how one would eat when they're hungry or sleep when they're tired, it was an impulse they felt the need to carry out instinctively. So, when the news of an invasion reached him all the way up here, immediately he knew this was what they needed to protect their land from. A subjugation force would eventually be sent out to deal with it, only to reveal these invading soldiers weren't as powerful as he thought. There were groups of soldiers harder than the others, but those just required a bit of preparation. Sure, victory wasn't guaranteed against any of them, but none of them seemed outright impossible. That is, until they saw Sung. Still, negotiations with the human did hurt his pride, but that was far better than the alternative. And yes, the entry permit was something Essel's dad was supposed to protect, but the cost of doing so was just too high. He knew Sung was far too powerful to even consider fighting. It was even with all his shadows being clearly visible to him that Essel's dad could tell this wasn't even all Sung was capable of. Though he didn't know why, Sung was clearly hiding his true power. So, as unbelievable as it was for Sung to request only Essel and the permit, if it meant saving everyone, this really was no price at all. Plus, with this protecting the sanctity of the floor he was responsible for, technically he wasn't going against the order of the unknown voice either. The only risk he carried was with Essel. So, it was once Sung confirmed she'd be fine that the permit would be handed over and everyone happy. For Sung, this was a bit more of a surprise since this would be the first time he'd acquired a key item through dialogue. The stamp at the bottom indicated it was the property of the Radaru clan, and that hinted the other permits were likely in possession of all the other clans. This made the climbing process a lot more streamlined since rather than farm monsters aimlessly and endlessly, now Sung knew exactly where to go. It was much better than waiting forever for a loot item to drop randomly and without notice. It's then that Sung would want to leave immediately, but Essel's dad would insist he stay for a feast. Sung really wanted to keep going, but when he saw Essel's face and how it seemed like she wanted to stay, he decided to oblige since it was the courteous thing to do. He had also grown pretty sick of the stale bread and jerky the shop provided him. It was after all that Sung would make
Damn.
his way to the teleportation
The show actually provides him food. I didn't know that.
elevator, where Essel accompanying him would reveal the existence of a party system. Not only did this allow members to travel to the next floor with him, but it also shared his XP at a rate dependent on their level of contribution. Naturally, this made Sung more than a little bit worried, since to lose out on XP was quite literally the worst thing imaginable for him. That being the case, he made it crystal clear that under no circumstance should Essel ever intervene.
Damn, Sanju is so he's so different than Suho. But it said the party system is already exists, dude. I didn't remember about the party system, but it said the party system already exists during this time. So I guess it's good that the party system will be coming back in the Ragnarok, and it will focus on the party system more than the shadow system.
Essel of course took this as Sung looking out for her, but really it was him ensuring all the XP
I feel bad for Asil. I'm glad that Suho is her new master.
was his. Now, we know Essel's bag was intended to be gifts for negotiation, but Sung felt one exception was enough. Even though the other clans were civilized like hers, Sung had no intention of sparing any of them. So there would be a fairly descriptive scene of Sung going on a massacre, and when you consider how these demons were only protecting the place they called home, it's kind of messed up that Sung wouldn't even give them a chance to give up. Like,
Damn, yeah, Song is so merciless. Oh my god. Like, I don't know why the novel, maybe I feel like the manhwa and the anime actually tone it down a bit, because it still makes the demons as his enemies, because if he is not stronger than them, of course the demons gonna still attack. But the novel Song, oh, he just doesn't care. No moral compass at all. Bro, he's a psychopath.
before they had even known they were being attacked, Sung had already used Tusk to set their castle aflame. Their walls were literally melting, while any soldiers who ran outside were
I still should not like this person.
cut down instantly. So for Essel, this would be an absolute nightmare. She couldn't help but think now of how lucky she was. For Sung, this was simply the extent of the relationship
Oh, he thinks but he is lucky, so he didn't care about the other demons.
in between humans and demons, because if the positions were flipped, they would do the same. It was the simple truth that the strong always devoured the weak. So, if Sung knew that they wouldn't spare him, then why was it that he should bother to do the same? This was the logic Sung decided to proceed with. This brings us now to a funny scene with Iron, since after clearing out another camp of demons, he had rushed over to Sung, eagerly awaiting his praise. Sung would then ask if he was sure he was finished, to which Iron would nod confidently. The thing is, there was a demon right next to him stealthed with invisibility. Sung could tell it was waiting to mount a sneak attack, but decided not to do anything to see if Iron would notice. Since he didn't, Sung would take care of it himself, proceed to question Iron like a child, then Iron would lower his head out of embarrassment. Igris, on the other hand, would return looking a little different because his level was maxed, indicating he was ready for an advancement. He would then kneel in front of Sung, holding a sense of nervous determination, all while Sung would look at him proudly. As the first in his army to achieve such a feat, Sung believed it was well-deserved since Igris was always the one who fought the hardest. Sung would then establish the command enabling this advancement, speak the word triggering its commencement, then witness Igris evolve like he was a Pokemon. It was a moment that was a lot more epic in the manhwa, a scene visually similar to when Sung first became the Shadow Monarch. What
Damn, they
emerged was
cut
a
this
shadow
out.
with far
What
more
the?
aura than ever before, so to see what it was his soldiers could become, Sung was now eager to do this with the rest of them. Tank would stroll in seeking his advancement next, revealing something rather peculiar about it. The
What?
levels required for it differed depending on the rank the shadow was. Since Tank has definitely killed less demons than Igris, for both to rank up together indicated Tank's level requirement was lower. It made sense considering that that was just another standard video game element. Sung would then wonder if he could ascend himself, but that was an idea he knew was probably just wishful thinking. In any case, this evolution brought with it some pretty cool new designs for both Igris and Tank. For Iron, who had to watch all this go on, he was pretty sad since he was feeling left out. All he wanted was praise, but Igris and Tank stole all of it.
Aww,
Now,
full Iron,
490 and
full-
above was the level of Superior Nobles, so
then,
if Demon Nobles were at
Iron.
minimum the S rank, then Superior Nobles would be well above that. Essel was a bit worried Sung might fail, since if he did end up losing, the wrath of the upper clans would come barreling down on hers. It's for that reason she wanted to try negotiations first. She was trying to plan ahead just in case. The 90s did in fact prove to be a challenge, since where before his mana levels barely took a hit, now they fluctuated greatly. It meant his soldiers were getting destroyed and regenerated a lot now. Sung himself looked to be putting in work as well, since a hazy gas could be seen emitting from him. It was his sweat immediately evaporating from the heat, a telltale sign that each battle was life or death now.
Oh.
By the 97th floor, Essel didn't have energy to even be shocked anymore, so instead she would ask if every human was as strong as he was. It was a question to which Sung would answer only one or two, those being the chairman and Cha. The others didn't seem very strong at all anymore.
Yeah, I remember vaguely that he only said these two, which means these two is the only character that he thinks are on his a bit on his level, but damn.
Especially Choi, since Cha was quite a few tiers above him. So, if he was to judge based on their auras alone, there was a massive difference in strength amongst the S ranks. The reason I say massive is because, by Sung's observations, the difference between them was probably greater than the difference between the lower ranks.
Oh.
Like, say there did exist some form of double S rank, the difference between that and the regular S rank could be more than the gap between an A rank and the E rank.
Oh
it was
my-
hard to say for sure since S rank mana levels couldn't be
Damn. That much difference between the S ranks? Damn, that makes it hard to power scale now. What the hell?
measured like that.
Like, it was easier to what you call scale them when who is A, D, B, but S rank, all the S rank has very different power than each other's. What the hell?
When it came to his comparison with Chairman Go, they were on the same level the last time Sung saw him, but now that he was level 90, Sung was sure things were different. He was genuinely excited to go back home and compare, thrilled by the thought he might be able to consider them even weaker now. Now, the real reason Sung didn't need Essel anymore was because his perception stat had gotten to the level where he could find the permit without her. With the aura of the superior nobles being so strong, Sung could easily sense exactly where they were located. It made it so a guide was no longer necessary. Plus, he didn't really want to walk around with extra baggage. Essel would then question her own usefulness, leading Sung to walk up to her and tell her she worked hard. Her reaction was another emotion Sung never expected from a monster. But it was with each and every new one he got to see that it validated more and more the story she told before. He still wasn't sure whether this whole instance dungeon was a figment of the system's imagination, but for all the terror, anxiety, shock, and wistfulness Essel showed, it made it easier to believe she truly was a resident from another world. That being the case, Sung was starting to believe he was getting closer to the true identity of the system. It was once he would arrive at floor 100 that he would proceed to do a quick warm-up activating his muscles, then venture forward towards the boss. It was when he finally found him that it wasn't the boss that garnered his interest, but rather the wyvern he was flying. Since this wasn't a demon like all the others, it made Sung think he might be able to extract it. So now he was just as excited as he was back when he had the chance to extract Baraka. The fight then proceeded extremely faithful to the manhwa, minus a slight change where Tusk would be the one to bring the wyvern down. Baran's army would be estimated in the thousands, so Sung was essentially up against the equivalent of 1,000 A ranks. Then the opening skewering was a move Sung had intentionally waited for, creating a scene straight out of Vlad's playbook. The novel presents the fight as something significantly easier for Sung since there wasn't much of the struggle we saw in the anime. His immunity to lightning meant he could run around without issues, then their initial clash here had actually been what knocked Baran out of the sky.
Oh,
The
really?
two would then
Whoa.
immediately engage. Sung would have to abandon his robe because it caught on fire, then after that, he would proceed with a Sid-like battle, dodging everything perfectly. It was necessary to do so considering any attack could prove to be fatal now. So, Sung would dodge with the smallest of margins, all while gaining ground in the process. It was once he was right in front of Baran that he would reminisce of the battles he had before, thanking them for providing the power to fight evenly against such an absurdly strong monster. It was no exaggeration to say each floor molded and refined him for this exact moment. Sung would then land a critical hit on Baran's shoulder,
Critical
leading
hit.
to a fair spout of blade-to-blade combat. At first it seemed relatively even, up until Sung would use Ruler's Touch to stagger Baran. This would bring him to his knees, then create an opening allowing Sung to land the decisive punch. Sung would then follow it up with a weirdly placed punch straight into Baran's mouth, effectively preventing him from attacking with his magic. He would then treat his head
This is
like a
the
glove,
novel, right?
batter it around until it
Because in the manhwa and anime, Essil did actually contribute in this battle.
was gone, then thank Baran too for everything he was about to provide for him. So, while the fight was still fairly intense, in the novel it didn't seem like Sung ever had a chance of losing. It was
Oh.
nowhere near as close as the manhwa or anime. Now, if you're wondering how Ruler's Touch could even be used here, it's because that's one of Sung's skills that don't use mana. Just like how Shadow Preservation allows him to summon shadows without mana as well, Ruler's Touch can be used with zero cost whatsoever.
That's so overpowered.
But yeah,
What the hell?
that was the tower dungeon and Sung's fight against the demon.
Yeah, that's all of it. Song is so ruthless in this one. Like, how can he be so ruthless? Like, bro is not, bro is just business and business. Kind of reminds me. He really sees all the creatures as NPCs or just fodder. So thank God that Acid actually survived this. Like, I wonder how they did the solo level Ragnarok. I wonder what the solo level Ragnarok based on, because I don't think it gonna based on the web novel, because the web novel is so different to the manhwa. And the fact, I'm more amazed that somehow he actually settled down. Like, he really likes fighting in the manhwa and the novel. But yeah, that's all from me, guys. Thank you for watching. If you guys enjoys this, please leave a like and subscribe, and please check out the playlist to see more content from me. And yeah, peace out.